Hello and welcome everybody to Prosperity of Life weekly webinar where we teach you about the spiritual aspects of money, front door and back door. And we're so happy. I'm going to flip this over to the co-host today because we're going to reverse roles. And while she's doing that, I'm going to go out and find the co-host. Okay. So
You are the co-host, no running. Welcome everyone. We're so excited that you're here with us today to go through Q&A with Master Lama Rasaji. So I always look so forward to this every month because it's kind of like my financial update, There's just things in the market that, I want to pay attention to, but it takes a lot of time. And I know Lama G's teaching us that, we have to put in that time. And I'm like, just like all of you guys, I'm learning, I'm figuring it out. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk a little bit about work and money and mindset because it's all so important. So let's jump in here today. And we're in this yin cycle. Some of us feel like we're kind of starting to pull out of it, right? And so can you talk a little bit about the yin and yang cycle and how it relates to finances and our mindset and all that fun stuff?
well, we see right now, with the last couple of days, the unconscious, of course, are getting hit because the inflation scares have hit the market. So the market's been selling off the last couple, days, but it's needed to. I mean, it needs some fresh air. It needs some lifeblood into it. And the way the equity markets do in the yin and yang cycle, when the yin cycle hits, there's usually some selling going on. And when the yang cycle hits, there's buying going on. So it affects also your financial markets. People that's been following us, Lanette, good 6 to 36 months, which is most of the people here, they'll know that we're always talking about the conscious people seem to embrace the yin and the yang cycle kind of early, 3 to 4 weeks before everything else. When I came home from vacation this week, Monday, I had to go see my tax advisor Monday afternoon. And most people go, oh my gosh, I mean, how can you be happy about that? Well, I was happy about that because she saved me 50% over last year. So I was really happy about that. But my tax return, I don't know how big your guys usually is, but Lama G is about a 40, 50 page tax return. And what we love to do is send it to the IRS electronically just to get its approval. So we're sitting at home Monday night, and Mita and me, we're eating dinner, and I get a little ping on my cell phone, and it says, the IRS has accepted your tax return. And I said, well, do I get dessert now? Do I get dessert now? So what that says to me, sister, is it kind of answers the questions when you see something where every I has to be dotted and every T has to be crossed, and a third party governmental body says, you're clear. The way I'm saying is they're telling us for the spiritually minded is that we started feeling more young of the dragon coming out of this yin cycle early. And I think it started about Sunday, Monday. I could tell on the drive coming home, it was funny, sister. We're coming home on Sunday, and I'm going, where's all this traffic coming from in the middle of Florida on a Sunday afternoon, right? I pull off the side of the road. They want to get lunch. So I said, let's go to Cracker Barrel and eat. I haven't eaten at Cracker Barrel in a while. Of course, it's a Tennessee franchise, and I'm a Tennessee boy. And they make biscuits like my mom used to make. So I said, I got to go in there. And Chin loves biscuits. So we go in there, we eat. And then the Holy Spirit dumps on me. Oh my God. These are people making a last dish effort to get to the solar eclipse tomorrow. And they're racing up and down 95 like there's a Cat 5 hurricane coming in Key West. And they're going for a 5-minute enlightenment. They're going to run over everybody to get there. And I'm laughing. So yes, I think we're just about out of yin cycle, sister. I think we are.
Yeah, we had 2 minutes of the eclipse and we had that much traffic. What normally was a 60-minute drive to St. Louis, people were talking about 3 and 4 hours.
Oh
So
yeah, it's crazy.
it was crazy. So
I
I
mean,
had
I've never seen 95 for 10 minutes just sit still and nothing happened. I'm going, wait a minute, what is this? So I was happy though. I'm sitting there singing with my bride, and Shin's in the back and he's doing his electronic thing, and we're having a good time. And we just came out of a wonderful vacation, and Mita's putting all the pictures up on Facebook, and so we're having a time. But I said we might as well go into Cracker Barrel and let some of this traffic just go by. So the idea of pushing away from the table of life, well, I got a good taste of it. But I was convinced between that moment and the tax moment 24 hours later, yeah, most of this yin cycle's gone for the spiritually minded. That's for sure, sister.
All right, that's great news. So, the next thing that I'd like to share is we're going to advance through this. Like we're going to like just hit the negative like right in the beginning, and then we're going to crawl up and end this on a positive note
That
of
was
what's
wonderful.
going on. So here I'm going to share my screen, and this was a headline from our buddy Robert Kiyosaki. So let me go here to
Okay.
screen share. Okay, so can you guys see that?
Oh yeah, there's Robert. That looks like
Okay, so
good
here's
energy.
a quote that he gave. He was questioning, is it the end of the American empire? He warned that the S&P 500 is about to crash by 70%, and he compared the US economy in this article to the fall of ancient Rome, and its stupidity repeats. What do you think about him? I love his, I love listening to
Well,
him on his
I think a
podcast.
little bit of Robert's death urge playing out, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I mean, there's some sense in what he's talking. Obviously, like other psychics, like Robert, a lot of times when people make a prophetic motion like that, uh, they in the process, I think you accidentally closed your video there, sister, but I know you'll be back. A lot of times the prophecy's meant for that psychic. It's not meant for the world. They're not being an oracle to the world. They're being that way. So, inflation is doing what it's doing, but that inflation is going to slow down. It's slowing down, but most people they don't understand the they don't understand a lot of times economy, the bigger view, in regards the same way I look at my biological body, right? So I'm in the waiting room and I'm getting ready to go into the doctor's office. And I know I'm going to have a physical. And I know that doctor's going to say, let me check your blood pressure. Let me check your blood sugar. They're going to take my temperature. They're going to weigh me on the scales. And in most cases, it's like they're taking a snapshot of one moment in time. They're taking a snapshot of one moment in time. Now, it would be better if they took a video of my biological body during that examination as opposed to a snapshot. So why? Because like Boganathar said, I could never step in the same body of water twice. And this is how the body works, and it's how the financial markets work. Gold in the S&P, they're two entities that we invest in. Some people trade in it. I'm more of an investor than a trader. And a good part of the reason is because I've been working on my death urge for 55 years. And I learned a trick from a guy a long time ago, Sir John Templeton, who had a real spiritual grasp on money. He created the Templeton's Funds. He was a Christian scientist. So he was a metaphysical Christian, and he understood that energy is the currency of life. And that's what we have to always. So he taught me to buy and sell equities when the market was closed. In the beginning, I thought that was crazy. And then after a while, I realized, well, when you're doing that, when you're pre-setting your orders to get in or out of the market, you take the emotional body completely off the table. Most people lose money because their death urge or birth trauma is driving their emotional body. inflation just hit. I need to make a change in my portfolio. Oh my God, somebody just fired a rocket over Israel. I need to change my portfolio. And you just talk about it, and they get in that ping pong consciousness, Lanette, that we talk about. And lo and behold, they don't even have their principal left, much less do they have a capital gain, right? So when I'm working with people, and I have a couple people in our group here that I'm teaching them, they're investing with us with prosperity of life because they want 10% annually on their money, which is a good decent return.
Yeah.
They also want an acre in a lamasery, and they know that for a minimum investment of $500 they can lock that in. That is up until July 4th coming up this year, which we'll share with them at the end of the call. That But I'm teaching like Dr. Jenny and Gabby in Chicago and Mita here. She's really happy with what we did with her 401k and turned it and rolled it over into an IRA. But you take the emotions out. Why do we want to do that? Well, remember, the emotional body is your 4D body also, just like your mind is. And in the beginning, the emotions are ruling more than spirit until that spirit body becomes more clean through sadhanas, right? Through our spiritual practices. And as more of your soul gets anchored through the susuma into your body, and you're happy with being the eye of the storm instead of being the ping and the pong, things start to go. So Lamaji has spent almost 4 decades taking the siddhanas of Tai Chi Gong and applying them, sister, to this investment model that today Prosperity of Life uses, basically.
Oh, and that's a great segue into what I want to talk about now, because yesterday, for those of you that were on the gathering, I know some of you, there were issues getting on, and that link changes. And so for security purposes, and I just want to address this, I see some chat going on over there. And so the email that is sent out includes the link to join for private members, and then you can also access it on your website. And so we failed to update the website when we updated that link. So that's been taken care of. So going forward, y'all should be able to get on the gathering. And we had a good one yesterday. Oh my goodness. So just talking about that whole mindset thing yesterday, we were talking about, and so many people were sharing about how they're like manifesting their desires. Patricia up in Grand Rapids was talking about, what the actions that she is taking, and things are happening. And other people were sharing their creations, like holding them up and sharing like what they're doing. Sister Connie is making beautiful cards. And so Adam and his candlesticks, he's just not making bowls and staffs, Lamaji. He's doing
Sister,
candlesticks.
let's speak to that consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay, so people ask me all the time, what is, there was self-realization and then there's God realization. And how do we know that we're on the track of either one of these things? You're on the track of self-realization the first time you identify what's called by the Lamasery the cosmic turning point. In other words, I thought about something, I put my attention on something, and somewhere in my life, this showed up. And I knew I was part of that causation that created that action. And metaphysically, I realize now I'm what? I'm self-realized. That's what it means to be a realized conscious being. But God consciousness happens two ways the quickest. Now, watch how this fits in to what people were talking about at the gathering yesterday. We're supposed to love God, our Father, with all our heart, soul, and mind. It's been told to us since the old Judean text was written. We know that. It's the law of Moses. It's the key to that law. But also, we are told that the second fastest row is to fall in love with Abba's creation itself. Oh my God. When we do that, then a lot of times judgment happens, and judgment stifles growth. What is the second road quickest road to God consciousness. And that is putting action to your thoughts. And what we see with this group, with COC, the more they do their sadhanas on a regular basis, the more they look at the creativity they're putting down on their column exercise, and they're throwing fear to the wind, and they're stepping out and stepping up. Well, it tells you that we have a group of people that are seriously on the path to God consciousness. And who would have thought that business, money, and stuff was taking me on the path to God consciousness?
I'm trying to point to that arrow there, that little arrow up on my screen, because that's what happens, right?
Exactly.
Everything's in reverse. I'm not doing very well.
Well, you're doing good. That's it.
Good stuff. Okay. So somebody had asked for a couple of quick affirmations that they can take to the mirror regarding finances. And can you just share 2 or 3 of those off the top of your head that would be good for us?
Dear Father, I'm happy that you're pouring the portals of prosperity through me constantly. I am indeedly grateful today that I'm walking in your light of abundance. Things of this nature, that everywhere I turn, I manifest your prosperity in the way you want me to. Constantly, but you always do it in the action and thanksgiving, because you bring God into the presence. When I thank him, I'm already creating that level of expectancy. He's always working. So the way I always taught that the law of attraction works, sister, is that you're the sun to your own solar system. And the solar system of all your wants and desires are the stars and the planets that are evolving around you constantly. And then as you shine a certain amount of light on them and spirit, so the sunlight you shine on them is the light of God. The action that you take with that is the spirit of God. And the two things is why your planets show up in 3D and not only anymore in 4 and 5D. And that's how the stuff gets done.
Good stuff. So what I'm hearing is we can talk about stuff all day long, but until we take action, we will remain where we are. And the overcoming the mindset's important, but equally important, would you say? I mean, even probably more so, is taking the action.
Well, let's look at it from a Siddhanta point of view to answer that question. Karma yoga came into being a lot longer time ago than Kriya yoga. And what is karma yoga referred to? Is action yoga. It's referred to as action yoga. And that is, I could be cleaning the house, pushing a vacuum cleaner, and I'm in devotion to the divine. I could be out gardening. I'm in devotion to the divine. I'm playing my piano like Master David. I'm drawing my pictures like Brother Joseph, but I'm doing karma yoga, which means as you do that, you're also dissolving karma. When does karma yoga evolve and become Kriya? Kriya means doing action with specific intention. Aha, column exercises, mirror meditation. Now, me and the Heavenly Father, through the energy of the Divine Mother or the Holy Spirit, we're going to go forth and do exactly what we all agreed to do. That's what we do. That's Kriya. And that's the age we in. And Tai Chi Gum is the Kriya Yoga of the Dark Power Yuga. For the next, 2,100 years out of the 2,400-year cycle, this is the system. It was designed for that. And when it was given to Boganathar, we were still in the Kali Yuga. We were descending to the age of darkness. And he was that light in that dark time that said, what you guys are doing, it's messed up. We see that today, right? We look at Washington, that's messed up. governor. We go, that's messed up. You know, we look at taxes, we look at inflation, and we go, that's messed up. But there's always, remember, sister, a Tai Chi Gong way to do things and an un-Tai Chi Gong way to do things. That's the key.
Well, and one of the things, over the years I look back and taking action was hard. I mean, and some of you guys might be there now. And, I wasn't as spiritually as far along as I am now. And so I just imagined like this little voice up here going, you can't do that. You can't do that. And, a friend had told me, she calls it her, I'm going to cuss. So turn your volume down if you don't want to hear it, but itty bitty shitty committee. You can't do that. You can't do that. And once I took control of that, and I literally would have conversations like, it's not your turn to talk, it's my turn. And so it was just now it's like so easy because I've trained myself to recognize that that is not of God. If I have prayed about this and I put it on paper and I've gone to the mirror, this voice is not of God. And I've proved that to myself. And so taking action has become so much easier for me because of that. So I don't know if that's helpful for y'all, but get
Well,
rid of this, right?
a person wants to go to Lama, they'll never see Lamaship without action. I mean, that's a no-brainer. You'll never see Lamaship without it. You'll never see Tai Chi Gong Mastership without action. And that's the key. And focused, concerted action will absolutely tell you who is a Tai Chi master or Lama by just observing them. It's St. Francis says, your actions speak so loud, I do not hear your preaching at all.
I love that. I love that.
And so,
Good stuff. All right. So here's one of the questions from our audience. How can we raise the value of, for example, the Canadian dollar? What makes products going to Canada from the US so expensive?
a lot to do with regulation and taxation. And what is the trade agreement between those two countries, right? That's a really, really, really key. So, you look at the import cars that come to our country, right? And they come for a reason and they're packaged in the process. But you could go to a country like, let's say Germany, for instance, and let's say I want a Mercedes. I could probably buy that Mercedes a lot cheaper by buying it directly from Germany. But now I have to have that car shipped through US customs. Well, everybody wants a piece of their pie. When you look at manufacturing and how many different levels that people get paid by the time a product gets to the end consumer, how many people got paid? It's no different with trade agreements between countries and the taxation of other countries. We'll remember when the president at 45 decided that he wanted to get the Chinese attention. What did he do? He put a particular tax in relation to farming, and he took the excess surplus of that, and what did he do? He gave it to the farmers to overcompensate for what they were not making as farmers. So there's a really interesting, this stuff you see happening every day on Main Street. You also see it happening on Wall Street. That's why you have to understand with all the equities, there's a wholesale market, there's also a retail market. And at times you actually want to be in them both. Just like when you take Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant, E is for employee. Most of us started there. Some of us are still there. They're self-employed, business owner, and investor. When I started to make that switch, at first, I found myself in all four categories because even as an employee, it fed my concept of becoming a self-employed advisor or a 1099 person eventually, that I could take more value, which means I could charge more. But eventually I had to outgrow that because I was still trading dollars for hours. But those two things gave me the best education to move toward a business owner, because then I could recognize different stages of the business. I remember when I started studying the financial markets in the early 90s, the difference was I was already a Tai Chi Gun adept going on into mastership in the early 90s. So when I started learning the financial markets, I didn't learn it like the average person who would go to college would learn it. I was seeing it from an adept and a master's level. So I was picking up on that. I was always pretty good with numbers in school. So I was picking up on it like Master David picks up on music notes. I was picking up the same one. And that those two brains, by the way, go very closely together. And then today I researched where the insurance industry started in the world, where the banking industry started in the world, where the equity markets, and I saw a common denominator of an energy swing and how all that came together. And then with a particular female lama in Tibet, she had been seeing all the equity markets as different forms of currency. So she started saying to me, don't look at something as an equity portfolio, look at it as an energy portfolio.
Mm.
Since energy is the currency of life, deal with that. Also, look at assets, not just as assets, but different forms of currency. So real estate is an asset, but it's also a currency. You can barter with it. You can trade with it. So it's a form of currency. Gold is an asset like real estate. It's made initially by the divine, because the divine has its hand on it. It not only has an asset value measure, but it has an intrinsic energy measure. It has a certain level of chi. And as our family used to say, God only made so much of that. That itself makes it valuable. When you look at Bitcoin today, right? One of the reasons Bitcoin is so valuable, when people were laughing at me 2 years ago, sister, Bitcoin was $18,000 a unit, and now it's at 72,000. They're not laughing at Lama G too much anymore about that, right? But one of the reasons it made it value, I'll give you two basic reasons it became extremely valuable. There's a limited amount of Bitcoin that you can purchase. So a company decides they want to dilute themselves and get more shares, then maybe they will split their stock 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 5-to-1. You can't do that with Bitcoin. So that's important. Number two, it became not only in the wholesale market that had been for already 10 years, but now this past year, it was introduced to the retail market. So they made all these closed-end funds Bitcoin closed-end funds. Well, now indirectly, you had investors buying the retail end of the blanket. And what did those two things together do to Bitcoin? Just like this. Now, if you know how these markets work together, then you would know that.
And here's a headline I'm going to share that just confirms what Lama G talked about. There, right there. He's just moving right through my plan here. I guess it's that intuition.
Well, and this
You.
is a third reason that it's valuable. So gold, as we know, is at all-time highs now. Silver, not yet there, but it won't be before long. Now watch this. Gold is always looked at as a hedge to inflation, which it is, right? But it was also looked as a safe haven, like American fiat currency used to be looked at, which, by the way, is going to be looked at again, just so that you know that, right? So gold is no longer just the safe haven. Electronic cryptocurrency has now took 20% of that market away from gold and silver. Imagine you're a mono investor, gold, silver, mono, don't get in my way. I got blinders on, here I go. And all of a sudden, you're like a truck running down the road. And now that your gold and silver is up 30 to 50% in the last year or so, you think it's going to ride that tide forever. No, it won't. You know when it changes? I'm going to tell you exactly when it's going to change. You hear it here first. Donald Trump goes back into the White House. Everything's going to change the economy. What's going to happen to inflation? Well, he's going to run the pipelines. He's going to drill, baby, drill. And what's going to happen to the fiat dollar versus the gold? What's going to happen to inflation? Well, gold and silver will take a 20 to 30% haircut, not the S&P 500 that Robert's talking about. It'll be gold and silver, but it'll be temporary. But it'll be a 2 to 3 year temporal thing. So do I want to be buying now, or do I want to be taking some cream off the top now and diversifying some of that asset value that I've made into things like PFL, into other currencies, right? Like I just bought some extra Vietnam dong because you know what we've been saying about Vietnam dong for a while.
Their economy is exploding.
Well, and so Lama G PFL owns 3 different Vietnam EFTs. And when everything else on a day like yesterday's going down, guess what? It's going up. What does that tell you? And then I'm sitting on several $1 million of their currency, and they're saying in the next 10 years that bridge between dollar to dollar and where the dong is now could trace 50% of that margin.
Wow.
I own now almost 100,000 plus of the Indian currency. Why? Because India, they said the karma has been resolved. And India is the largest democracy in the world, 1 billion democracy, right? Think about it. We have 300,000 in America. They have over 1 billion people there.
Wow.
What do you think is going to happen to the ruble over the next round? But so I own some EFTs in India, right? And I own the currency too, right? And the Philippines is the third one that's going to be huge. Why is that huge? Philippines currency, the peso to the dollar, is 50 to the dollar. 50 pesos for $1 US. So let's say that they decide that they want to become more a republic, not like America's headed to, but how America was or could be again if we have a more conservative administration, right? So what happens when that relationship happens to their currency relation? See, this is real investing, sister. This isn't child's play. This is seeing all the markets work together in a unified field. Now, why would a llama see all the markets working together in a unified field? It's the true chanda of the markets, is it not? If we have our spirit, mind, and body, do you want a money manager that sees the markets as a unified field and who knows what something's going to happen before it's happened? Or do you want a money manager that you find out later that they're a smokeaholic and an alcoholic, and in between part times they're going out doing this, and they're pulling the trigger every time their death urge and their birth trauma hits? I mean, where do you want to keep your money, right? Because it might be something to consider. Back to you, sister.
Well, and speaking of gold, and I've been hearing a lot about this new BRICS economy, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and many other countries from around the world are supposedly like joining this, since the US, kind of gave the middle finger to Russia. Russia was like, well, I'll just jump ship from the US dollar and go over to and team up with the Chinese. And so this whole BRICS thing is growing. Do you think the US will eventually go to a gold-backed currency?
I think they will, but I don't think it all will be. This is
Okay.
what we will see happening. A couple things. Great question. You're going to see currencies divided up where Some will go to a real estate trust. We'll back it. Well, PFL's invested into real estate trust. You shouldn't be surprised about that, right? It's a good return on your money if you do your research and you know what to do. The other thing of it is certain things will be backed by gold, silver, and other precious metals, but also by electronic currencies that they are trying to prove out right now, right? And they are proving one out right now. And it's going right now dollar to dollar with our fiat currency. So all those things are in the process of happening. And why do I say several things? We evolving out of one thing for everything. Think about it. We've been moving from this mindset a long time ago. First, we did it in business. Now we're getting ready to do it all in asset investments and also into multiple different ways of currency. Listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully. This is important. We all have this mindset, and a lot of it's our Judean Christian teachings where everything was sin. It was always right and wrong. There was no gray. There was no choice of that. It had to be this or it had to be that, right? So watch. The Taoists don't look like that. A Taoist mindset doesn't look like that at all. So the key of it is that you're going to see different asset class represent different currency classes and vice versa. Down the road one day, you might have a currency that's backed by gold that pays for your mortgages. But you might have a currency backed by crypto that's paying for all your utility bills like cable, internet, cell phone. Everybody see where I'm going? Mm-hmm. So see, we would love to have the one that, you know why? Because that's kind of a lazy mindset. Let me show you how business has been. Years ago, before the Karate Kid came out in the 1980s, you could open up a martial arts school and you could teach the one subject and make a decent living. And in those days, probably your youngest student was between 13 and 16 years old. But lo and behold comes the Karate Kid. And then when the Karate Kid comes out and Miyagi is teaching Daniel's son how to do wax on and wax off, all of a sudden these martial art masters start thinking like the dance schools. And they see dance toddlers learning tap and ballet at 5 and 6 years old. And they go, why don't we start a junior program? Why don't we start a 5-year-old program? We'll call it the Tiger Program. Like this, right? That worked for 30 years, sister. Now watch. That started doing this. They said, what are we going to do? Well, what about if I'm a Taekwondo school, but I also offer Thai kickboxing or Filipino stick fighting or Krav Maga from Israel's Secret Service? So all of a sudden now, not only did the martial arts schools learn from the dance schools how to just not teach adult but children, now they learned, oh, you got ballet, you got tap, you got modern dance. Well, then they say, so now in order to make a living, you have to have multiple subjects.
Well, isn't that interesting? Because here at Circle of Chi, as we go, we learn, we become a student, we fall in love with this program, and now it's transforming our life. We can become a teacher. We have an affiliate program. We have iHercules. We have the one. We have, there's just so much stuff. It fits right into the plan of today, right? I think so.
Yeah, it's fun. It's absolutely true. But see, the reason I share that is now when you're investing, think about the analogy Lama Ji just gave you. Mm-hmm. While I went down this highway of how dance business, which I was involved in, martial art business, which I've been involved in, I've had hands-on experience in both of those industries, been successful. And now look at your investments. And what you'll find out is that most people want to invest in one asset class or another. I want this. And I'm going to tell you, it's investing laziness. That's what it is. It's the same mindset that 40, 50 years ago, your family, your parents would retire. Dad would come home with a watch and 40 years of service, and he would probably turn around, kick the bucket about 10 years later.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Now,
Well, and oh, go ahead.
no, look at our group today. Most of our students that start with us are in early or already retirement age, and they're looking for their second, third wave in life. We're taking the death urge, the mortality adjustment unconscious off the table. We're teaching them how to be healthy enough to stick around another 50, 100, 150 years. Oh, and by the way, since you're going to do that, why don't you make a little bit extra cash? Oh my God, I'm 90 years old and I'm going to become an entrepreneur. Yeah, isn't it great?
I'm going to start a teaching business. I think of Tom and Judith, and they're starting a teaching business, and I'm telling you guys, they are taking action and they are lining things up, and they're doing their calm exercises and their mirror meditations, and it's laying right out for them. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
It is
Congratulations, Tom and Judith, because that's
beautiful.
really cool. And so here's another headline that I want to share. Let me share my screen here because I thought this was quite interesting. Speaking of, things kind of changing, there it is. Here's, where is that headline? Oh, hold on. I thought I had it pulled up. I guess I don't. Okay, let me go back over here. There it is. Okay. Look at this. Costco is now selling precious metals.
Oh, yeah. And they've sold over $200 million. They were just talking about this today on Wall Street. Yeah.
Yeah, this was from yesterday. So,
Yeah.
there you go. So, things are changing. Like,
Oh, yeah.
just like he said. I mean, who would have ever thought that Costco
That's
would be
it.
selling precious metals?
My
So,
gosh, I can
uh,
walk in this line and I can get a pizza and I can walk over here.
buy a stick of gold. What the heck, right? That's funny. All right. Well, let's talk about a few different things here.
Sure. What?
Um, Thinking of AI and how it impacts finances, right?
Right.
So, machine learning is, let me get over here to my notes. I want to make sure I say this right. So, machine learning, the whole AI thing, it's playing an increasingly significant role in the stock trading right now.
Right.
Okay. And
Right.
so, predicting market fluctuations, it's studying consumer behavior, it's analyzing stock prices and the dynamics that go with that.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on
Well, first of
AI and the
all,
future of the stock market?
yeah, first of all, Lanette, people have to understand that's been going on actually for about 25 to 30 years, and a lot of people have not known. So when you examine how these software programs work that people buy to take themselves from a retail investor and try to be able to rub elbows with market managers, they've been selling these software programs, Lanette, for a good 3 decades now. And when you examine how they're built, obviously AI has been included in these replications. And as it's evolved, more and more and more. But it can only rely on past performance and the information that a human being has now programmed into that, right? You
Mm-hmm.
want to change that, another human being has to go in there and do that. So that's there in investing. Where I saw a real positive thing about AI in the last 48 hours, everybody, I remember my ex-partner, I mean, he used to push it like doomsday. You're going to all lose all your job. It's all going to AI, right? Starbucks will be some machine pouring your $6 cup of coffee or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
he had me thinking how I was going to revamp my job because he said
That's
AI's coming, Lynette.
so, so the funny thing of it is that in some companies where AI is working in manufacturing, they're not losing the employees. The productivity of the employees are going off the chart because maybe AI is automated a forklift to go and lift things that a human being might strain their back to do. And now you take that off the table, which frees that person up to spend more time to the consumer of what they're more valuable to do. Productivity goes up the thing. So it's not going to be constantly used in Main Street to replace people. It's going to be used to make the company work more efficiently.
Mhm.
And that, to the bottom line, speaks to margins and capital gain.
Very cool. Okay, I have two more questions here that are kind of a quick thing, and then we'll go over to our Q&A. So I
Sure.
think you'll like this. I think you'll like this question because I know you're a sports fan. With unionization coming into college sports now, and the whole university and athletic program, what impact do you think that's going to have on ticket prices and fan participation?
Well, you can really see, I'm a Gemini and I'm a yin and yang guy. And because I'm a Gemini and a yin and yang guy, a lot of times I can really see both sides of a coin that a lot of people won't see. And in that particular situation, I really see the value on both sides. I can understand, I grew up with a sister who was a world-class athlete. She went to 2 Olympic triumphs, right? And I trained in dance and martial arts the way she trained in swimming. So we were extremely competitive. When you devote 4+ hours a day to an art or a sport to become an elite, I can understand them saying, like, why shouldn't they be compensated for that? Because a lot of times, if plus on the fact of it is, that's about how they train. And then look how much time, Lanette, they're spending in actually hitting the books in college.
Right.
And then study. I used to be told, that, for every hour, you needed at least 2 hours of study in college, right? So factor in the same 24 hours in a day. Where did these elite athletes have time to go out and, be an assistant tutor to a certain amount of students for 3? They don't have the time. They're going to have to choose. Either I'm going to be an elite athlete, Olympic level, NCAA level, or I'm just going to be an athlete at some junior college that maybe is not that competitive, and then I'll work on the side. So I can understand that. I understand from the fans' point of view also, because the moment you attach money and power and eliteness to a certain degree, you start to take a little bit of the luster off the rose, do you not? I mean, you really,
Right.
really do. And let's just, for instance, be extreme. These NFL quarterbacks that are getting $60 to $120 million a year. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah.
And and I gotta pay them whether they're playing or if they just hurt their ankle down on the bench.
That's crazy.
And
That's
then
crazy.
the other thing of it is the portal of the free agency.
Right.
Where's the loyalty anymore? Right? So there are 3 big areas that we're talking about this changing sports. And for some parts, it's not changing it for the best, unfortunately. Especially if you're a fan like me. I particularly like the passion of the college level of participation. I love to watch Florida State football. I knew when they hired the guy from Memphis, the guy that's with Florida State now, I told my family, who is Gator fans, half of the family, Florida State, other half.
That makes it a fun family gathering.
Oh, it does. And I told them, I said, this guy will be the next Bobby Bowden. You watch and see. When Bobby Bowden showed up in the 70s to Florida State, by the way, anybody want to know anything about Lama G's father, my maternal father to this body, was Bobby Bowden and my dad were identical kind of personalities. If you know who Bobby Bowden, the great football coach from Florida State. But when he left and retired, Florida State just kind of 15, 20 years later, just kind of did this. right? And this guy took Memphis State in a totally smaller league from almost zero to championship in about 2 or 3 years. So last year he finished his third year, going to his fourth year, and we saw them. They just stayed in the top five, kind of got screwed when it came to the playoffs because their quarterback got hurt. And the moment that did that, they took him out of the run. But I guarantee you that this guy, he's a long-term guy. He's so disciplined, like Master David is, that this guy is in for the long haul. His family is there. His daughter hugs the players. It's a family deal. He loves Tallahassee. There'll be a force to be reckoned with the next 10 years. He will probably build in Florida State what Nick Saban built in Alabama. That's probably right. Yeah.
That's exciting. Well, one last question, then we're going to jump over to the Q&A.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on online financial groups where you can buy like fractional shares? I've heard about an organization called like Stash, where if you're a beginning investor, you can start and you can just invest in these fractional shares. Are you familiar with those? And do you have any
I am
thoughts
a
on that?
little bit. I am. They talk quite a bit about it. Like I said, Wall Street on a given day, Monday through Friday, is on, but 92 to 95% of the time, the volume's never on. I'm either listening to Master David's music or some frequency music that sometimes they see me post up on our group site on Facebook. But if I see an interview, whoa, Jamie Dimon's getting ready to speak. You remember the old days when E.F. Hutton speaks, you better listen, right? So when that kind of interview, then I turn up the volume. I record everything and I delete 90% of what I record. But I record it so that over the weekend, I can go in and capture that 5-minute interview that I know will be a market mover next week. And I think the greatest thing the cable companies ever created was DVR. That was the great. Now you're the programmer, and that's
Right.
so Dai Gung, right? We're the programmer, not these derelicts. We're the programmer, right? So I would be careful from what I'm hearing about those kind of things. You want to be real careful how secure they are, because there is some identity theft happening in some of these groups. And I see that could be the next purge. When I get on with people like Dr. Jenny, it's a real empowerment for them to feel like, oh my God, I bought that equity. I sold that equity. Oh my God, you can feel the empowerment. And so I want people to take control of their life financially. And that's what I want to do. In the meanwhile, we want to give them a decent return. But who's doing what we're doing in PFL? 10% annual return in an acre in a lamasery? I don't know who's doing that deal. I think that's a pretty good deal. And all along with it, when they get on with me in the Zoom, if they want to spend 10 or 15 minutes talking investing, hey, I love it. Because, Lanette, you know what I've experienced. You've seen it. Connie and us have talked about it. We got to get the spiritual minded, financially emboldened. We have to, because the kingdom of heaven has to be financed. The Eidetic consciousness has to be financed. So what we're doing that I'm loving right now is there's 3 primary pieces of property that PFL is going to own in the next couple of years for our COC members, right? But along the way, my new thing, and I love to be the student, sister. Master Dave will tell you, Lamaji loves to be the student because I just get after it, right? So mastering the stock market, mastering the equity market, mastering, Forex, all that kind of stuff. My new thrust is mastering the real estate market. That's my new thrust.
I
So
love it.
fun looking at it as currency. And so there is real estate that we're going to hold, which these 3 parcels. And the nice thing about it, the retreat center is falling right into our lap, and that'll be the first thing to probably go. I was telling somebody today, I said, there's a portion in scripture that says the last can be the first and the first can be the last. And that doesn't just apply to a faithful servant of God. That applies to everything in the world. I'll give you an idea. Until I started focusing on building the lamasery, I didn't know that Spirit wanted us to have a ranch. Until I started focusing on the ranch, I didn't know that Spirit wanted us to have a retreat center. And it's funny how it's flipped around. So the last can be the first, and the first can be the last. But if Lamaji's learned anything, when you take action, whatever that next action is, it's when magic happens. And sometimes it happens directly, but sometimes you've created such a frequency that other opportunities fall right in front of you.
And I see that happen all the time with you.
And
I'm
if
just
you
like,
had to take the action, right, sister? It wouldn't happen. If
I
you had to
know.
take the action, it wouldn't happen. Let's
Yep.
go to Q&A.
All right. So Dawn has here, my nephew told me that the state of New York has shut down exchange Qcoin and won't be able to buy XRP. Is that true? Have you heard anything about that?
Some of the people, some of the wholesale e-wallets and brokerage houses, for instance, I can't buy XRP on my digitalmoney.com, but Uphold, no problem. But it also has to do, you guys got to qualify these wholesale brokers. Be careful of these wholesale brokers. In other words, when you're going to use a wholesale broker that has a platform, make sure they have 30 or more cryptos, or don't even look at them. That's number one. If they don't have at least 30 different cryptos. The other thing of it is, go in and buy a little bit and then get your money in and out. Because if you get your money in and out one day when that money's worth something, because we had somebody in our group who wanted to donate $500,000 to PFL, but then she went to try to get her money out. She still hasn't gotten her money out, and she's been trying to get her money out for 6 months. Okay, so be careful. Be careful. Okay, so be careful. So Uphold in my digital money, even though they got a little stricter about XRP. Now they're still, my digital money, you can still buy XLM, but you can't buy XRP. But in Uphold, XRP, Uphold's doing fine with it. I think Uphold, I've been with them a couple of years. They've got about 40 different, they're adding these are the kind of companies, these wholesale brokers you want to pay attention to. Are they adding all the time? And is the trading volume going up? The overall trading of the brokerage house and the overall trading of the equities. Remember, in most of these wholesale markets, most of these entities are trading under $1. And then when they start trading like from $1 to $5, they'll go to the retail market to like the American Stock Exchange. And then they'll take off like a gangbuster, right? So if anybody's interested in asking me stuff, get on the Zoom with me. You want to know, like I saw a couple of questions, people like, where Lama G are you buying, direct currency? Get on a Zoom with me. I'll show you. I'll show
And
you.
I put my email over there, so just email me and I'll send you a link.
Yeah.
And we change that link regularly as well,
Yeah.
just to prevent people from overscheduling. As you guys know, I have a note here. Teachers and PFL investors every 60 to 75 days,
Right.
and the rest of our membership is every 90 days.
Yeah,
So
and if anybody wants to know about their PFL account, the same way I made everybody get on with me before you invested, just get on with me. I'll tell you how your account's doing. I'm not shy.
all right, let's move to the next question about fundraising. Linda says that their community does lots of bake sales, yard sales, and she finds herself wondering from a Tai Chi Gong perspective, if how your insights fit into fundraising, especially online fundraising, things like GoFundMe. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Mita, if you remember, a real booger of a typhoon hit the Philippines about 2 years ago. And Mita, I helped her create a GoFundMe account. Some of you participated in it. I know Keith in Australia was a big help in that area because he did some graphics for her on that site. Mita ended up raising like $55,000 in about 6 to 8 weeks. She went after it. We did a GoFundMe thing for Andy and his family that was very successful. They raised over 10K to help relocate his brother and their 4 children. And I'm in touch with Andy on a daily basis to see what else we can do to help that family. And we're still helping that family. They're good. When you go to do that, it's how strong is the need versus the right entity? Because you know, GoFundMe's not the only one out there. There's a couple of them out there. But we like the results. Andy had a good experience with GoFundMe. Mita did too. We were able to do things that we have 7 or 8 workers in the Philippines. We were able to repair all 7 to 8 of their homes. Mita's sister has a store. 3 weeks before the government was bringing water and rice, COC was already through GoFundMe having people line up every day to give them water and rice. And we shamed the Filipino government 3 weeks later to start showing up with trucks doing the same thing. Now that I love. And that's what we did. Yeah. And Mita did a great job of that. I was so proud of her, how she did that. Yeah.
All right, let's see. Brent says, what do you see happening with the real estate market? How soon before it falls significantly? Like you and the Sage of the South had predicted, it seems very, very stuck with the high demand, high prices, and low inventory.
Well, I don't talk very much with him. He's busy doing a lot of political things. I know at one time Joe was even talking about running for governor of South Carolina.
Wow.
But he's very deeply involved in this coming election. His company is, they're really trying to get a lot of conservatives and all. So he's busy doing his thing. What Joe and me, I remember saying is that when you look at the 50s, let's just take America for a second. I don't know as much about outside of Costa Rica. I don't know as much about outside. I know the American market pretty good. But I told you guys years ago that about 33 states were going to be states that a lot of people would migrate to. And about 17 to 18 states, people were going to be migrating away from. Now, you think about that. And what does that tell you about the difference in real estate versus the 17 to 18 to the other 32 to 33, right? So there are different markets that are being looked at in different ways. And by the way, some markets have already tanked. You're just not paying enough attention yet, and you're not digging good enough for information. I know of a complex right outside of St. Louis that at one time when they sold this complex initially, it was worth $300 to $400 million, sold this last year for $5 million. So what happened to the value of that place? Think about that haircut, right? So it's already happening. It's been happening already 2 or 3 years, but you got to pay attention to the market, right? You know, and understand it depends on what you want to do. In any investment, ask yourself this: what do I want this investment to do? Who do I want it to help? How long am I willing to tie up my capital to do it? What kind of return do I want on my capital? And what is my risk tolerance? Those 5 things you should always ask yourself before making any investment, or don't make it. Or don't make it. Yeah, better not to make it, right? Even Warren Buffett, the numero uno investor, says, you know, cash don't get you much, but I sure sleep pretty good at night when I know I have a lot of it. Isn't it funny what everybody says about the fiat currency? You know, my ex-partners, I see his emails, and they still predicting doomsday of the American fiat currency. I'm going to tell you guys that Trump in office, watch the American fiat currency become the safe haven for paper currency for at least 2 or 3 years, at least 75% of his reign. Watch it. And when that happens, gold and silver is going to take a haircut. That would be a good time to add on some more gold and silver when it takes that haircut. Wouldn't be a good time to sell. It'd be a good time to buy. Now's the time to take a little bit of cream off of gold and silver right now. And some of our people are doing that, and they're re-diversifying. You want to diversify, just like Lamaji says, create an income stream every year and eventually have 5 to 10 different incomes that are paying you. That's financially front door solid. Back door solid, you want to be invested in about 6 to a dozen different assets class. That's financially sound backdoor advice. Get out of the mono mindset. That mono mindset is connected to the death urge. You wanting to stick all your cookies in one basket. What happens if that basket turns upside down? Right? What happens? What happens one day when you need a Big Mac to eat and you go in with your 10 or 20 ounce gold bar and they said, well, I would love to give you a Big Mac, but I'm just not going to take that gold bar for a Big Mac. I mean, you got to also be practical. There's many reasons why you own 6 to 12 different asset classes. Back to you, sister.
All right, good stuff. Someone's asking about where to mail more money for PFL. Send me an email and I can send that information over to you. Greg's asking, what EFTs do you like investing in Vietnam and India?
Get on Zoom with me and I'll be happy to share with you.
There we go. All right.
Because I don't want it to put out here and somebody buy it in the group and then it doesn't do well. And then you're mad at Lama G and you start passing that on to the Facebook group. Blah, blah. But how many people remembers Lama G plugging Disney about 8 weeks when it was $92? And last week, Disney hit $123 a share. That wasn't a bad bounce for a 6-8 week return, right? So anyhow, I'd be happy to share anything. By the way, May 15th is 1 year. So if anybody that's got it in May or June of last year wants to know how their account's doing, just get on with me and I'll let you know. The other thing of it is that our minimum, we just hit our first 100 investors. So not bad, 100 investors. And for a whole year now, we've allowed people to get in for as little as $500. That will continue, you better pay attention to this, to July the 4th, which July 4th represents a lot of things. Number one, our Independence Day. Number two, Lama G's teaching birthday. It'll be 41 years. But number three, we came over to COC last year on what day? July the 4th. On July the 4th, the minimum investment for you to get in our investment pool and get an acre in the Lamasery goes from 500 to 5K to 5,000. That's what the Lamasery wants to do. So maybe you might consider, if you've been close to getting your $400 to $500 ready, you might really rethink this because you got about 2 months to make that decision. I'm only talking about new investors. I'm not talking about the first 100. If the first 100 are in, you're in. You can add to it at any time. $50, $500,000. That's up to you. You can add anytime. And Lanette and me can share with you many ways to do that. Some people are clicking on the donation link, right? They're sending it to PayPal, but they send Lanette and me an email, say, by the way, we want this part of our PFL account. All we need to do is have those funds identified. That's all we need to do. There's Zelle. There's bank wire, there's check in the mail. Master David's old school. He likes check in the mail.
And we got an email that has all that on there for you.
So
you can pick which one that works.
That's right.
And I'm also getting, today there were people having difficulty getting on the Prosperity for Life webinar, this show. And so if you talk to any of those people, and we'll continue to share until people understand PFL, the link to join will be posted on Facebook. I pinned it this morning at 11:11 Central, so 12:11 Eastern, 50 minutes before showtime on Facebook. That link is there. So there's no excuses for not finding PFL except not knowing to go to Facebook. So that's what we need to educate people on is if you can't find your email, it's always, unless Lanette fails, but I'm going to try to every morning. I've got my alarm set to go over and pin that at 11:11 when my alarm goes off
And let me
or on
speak
our
to
through
next
us
week.
as it is
Yeah.
in heaven.
Let me
Okay.
speak to next week's guest. Guys, you'll want to be on next week
Oh,
because
yes.
we have Andy Lloyd, our webmaster, who will be on sharing with you all the benefits of the new platform that we're going to with Shopify. And if you're an affiliate, and most people here are affiliates in our group, and you're going to love to hear what he's got to say about the affiliate program, how it's going to be easier, how it's going to be easier to sign somebody up for COC, how the retention rate will be easier, conversion will be easier. Andy's going to be here and you'll be able to ask him all those questions. I'm having him make his list right now of benefits. Lanette's got some questions she's going to be asking him. And you guys start to write down your questions, right? And by the way, there will be no separate site. I'll tell you right away, PFL, when we launch the new site, will be a page on COC. It'll be a page on COC. And under the videos, when you go to one page, you'll be able to see all the webinar videos like this. Click here for the live video, click on the thumbtack for the latest recovery. Prosperity of Life will be at the bottom of that page. On the same page as all the COC webinars, PFL, make it easy for you, will be at the bottom of that same page, right? So just think about how cool that's going to be.
Good stuff. Well, we are
We
about
good?
12 minutes over, but if you want to close us out with prayer, we'll head on here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Heavenly Father and Divine Mother, for these wonderful, courageous people who are here to go from the lamb into the lion, to come forth and be strong for you, Abba, to be a representative of your Holy Spirit, your giver of life. Thank you that you are the architect of all creation, and you are teaching your children how to be the architects of their life. We are indeedly grateful for the Siddhanas that you share with us through the COC organization. And we are indeedly thankful that they're stepping into their prosperity and abundance every day. For everywhere they turn, abundance and prosperity of a heavenly host pours out to them, their families, pours into their bank accounts, into all their investments, and even into their cash flow itself. We are grateful that they are all surrounded by a bubble of your light, your love, your healing power, your protection, and that your anointing is on them, that the Creator within them fills them with love, makes them whole, and directs their life to your perfect light. Thanks be to thee. Amen. God's will, God's way. Thank you, sister. That was
Thank
great.
you. That was fun. Good stuff.
Love you guys. God bless you all.